the chat for the source sheet. I'm going to start now. Sorry about the late start. And I'm going to be talking about the duality of Yerushalayim. So obviously, this past Wednesday was Yom Yerushalayim. It was an amazing day to be in Jerusalem. There was a lot of celebrations. There was a lot of different type of flag parades. It was a very, very happy day. And it's something that I've been thinking about over time, because it seems to have there's something special about Yerushalayim. There's something added there. There's a type of Shekhinah that isn't present in other places, especially even in places in Eretz Yisrael. So I hope you've all got the first source. It starts in Parshat Shemot, which is our first source of Hashem deciding to reside within the people, which I think is the ikar, the main part of what we speak about and what we feel in Jerusalem, is that Hashem decided to reside, to put his Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. So we start off, Vasuli Mikdash v'shachamti betocham. So in Parshat Truma, as Hashem commands Bnei Israel to build the Mishkan, he says, Vasuli Mikdash. He wants to live in a temple, and v'shachanti betocham, and to live amongst the people. And we see in Tehillim, obviously the pasuk it's from Hallel Hashemayim Shamayim LaHashem va'aretz natan livnei adam. And we see similarly in creation that Hashem he resides in the heavens, and he gave man free will, free choice to reside and to spread and conquer and create. But still, Hashem he desires a place to reside amongst us. He wants, even though he's like endless, he's limitless, he wants to reside within us, to have a sort of central location where we can connect to him. And this is basically, last week was Parashat Bamidbar, where we see that Hashem, he describes the kind of the formation of the camp of Am Yisrael in the Midbar. And we see right in the middle are the Levim and the Mishkan. And throughout the whole Midbar, Hashem's presence is where everyone faces towards the center, and we all focus towards Hashem's presence and Hashem in the Mishkan, which is very important and then we also see something different in Sefer Yoshua, where the Mishkan actually is taken out to the front of the people to actually lead the people. So we see there that rather Hashem is not just in the center, but also at times has to lead the people and take the first step. And that was Davka when we came to Eretz Yisrael, that we needed Hashem to take the first step and to show us the way. And then eventually over time, we were able to become independent, to lose this kind of baby steps and to become our own nation and our own people. So we see here, this is basically all the sources, and we see in the Ramban in his introduction to Sefer Shemot, he explains that the whole point of Sefer Shemot was for Hashem to reside within us after Har Sinai. He says when they reached Har Sinai, they set up the Mishkan, Hashem returned to them like he did at Har Sinai, like he revealed himself, establishing his Shekhinah amongst them. And they returned to the spiritual level of their forefathers. They had Hashem in their midst amongst them. And then they were considered to be redeemed, right? So Ramban calls Sefer Shemot Sefer Geulah, and he thinks, he orders Sefer Shemot as the Chet HaEgel wasn't, the Mishkan wasn't a tikkun for the Chet HaEgel. It was rather just a lechatchila. In actuality, Hashem always wanted to reside amongst the people. It wasn't because they sinned that he had to reside within them. It was always that he wanted to, and it was the whole idea of Geulah. We see Hashem desires a Shekhinah. He wants his central place to reside within the people. And I feel, and especially we see Malachim, Shlomo HaMelech, who was one of the wisest men of all time, he built the Beit HaMikdash, and he seems somewhat perplexed, right? Because Hashem is endless, he's limitless, boundless, and what he wants us to do is to kind of bind him up in a makom, in a central location, for us to connect to him. So there's kind of like a conflict, right? How can we put Hashem in some sort of close location? If he's boundless, he's endless, it's Hashem, you can't limit Hashem. And this is what he says in Malachim. Baniti beit zavul lach machon l'shivtecha olamim. Ki haomnam yashev elokim ala aretz hinei hashamayim u'shmei hashamayim lo yicholchacha af ki habayit hazeh asher baniti. It's like he's asking, can Hashem really dwell on earth? The heavens cannot contain you. How much less is this house that I built? He's baffled. How can he's not even limited to the shamayim, to the rakia? So how can Hashem reside somewhere? Doesn't really make sense. Although, like we see, it's theologically and philosophically difficult, but practically it works. Hashem was able to reside at the Mikdash, and were able to connect to him. There must so seemingly the fact that Shlomo established after the Mishkan, he established a Mikdash in Yerushalayim, the Beit HaMikdash. Seemingly, we see that there's two type of planes at play. On the one hand, with the contradiction we have that Hashem is endless, he's limitless, he's boundless, so you can't bind him up. On the other hand, he does exist there. That's a central location where all the Jews can come together and connect to Hashem and to serve Hashem. If we look from our perspective, practically, is that we have this internal striving and we need a physical place to connect to Hashem. This is an internal desire to go and to come together and to connect as a people where we all come together and offer Hashem and serve Hashem. Whereas for Hashem's standpoint, obviously we don't know how he works, how he thinks, but seemingly this Mikdash was a central location where his essence could spread out, right? So on the one hand, we have the Jews had to come together and to have this internal desire to serve Hashem together. On the other hand, Hashem's presence is in this central location, localized, and it's intended to spread out to the whole world. So this is this whole idea of a central location and also us coming together to this location. And we see another aspect of the Mikdash and the Shekhinah of Yerushalayim. See in Tehillim, Zod benuchati adei ad. This will be your resting place forever. There is a proof that the Hashem's Beit HaMikdash will be, Hashem's Shekhinah in Yerushalayim will be there forever. And the Rambam says this as well. Once the temple was built, it was forbidden to build any other sanctuary for Hashem. There's no sanctuary for all generations except in Jerusalem, on Har HaMoriah. Because David declared, this is the house of Hashem, Hashem our God, this is the altar for burnt offerings of Israel. And we just said to him, Zod menuchati adei ad. This is my resting place forever. So we see here, okay, so you got the internal aspect of us coming together. You got Hashem's essence spreading, but you've also got eternity, something that lasts forever. Hashem's Shekhinah will always be in Yerushalayim. And just to add on that point of us coming together as Am Yisrael, we see that you can't offer a sacrifice any place other than the Beit HaMikdash, other than Yerushalayim. You can't eat Maser Sheni in any place other than Yerushalayim. Why? It should be fine to offer up a korban in my backyard. What's the problem? So we see that there's some sort of like a unification, a celebration where all of Am Yisrael come together to meet with Hashem, to offer sacrifices as an Am, not as an individual. We have this like sense of religious unification where we all come together to serve Hashem together. And this lasts forever. We're always centralized. We have this central location, the central longing. It's in a lot of our tefillot of Yerushalayim. We long to go to Yerushalayim to return to this avodah, to return to this kind of feeling of coming together as an Am, because Yerushalayim, actually in the Tanakh, David established Yerushalayim not specific to any shevet. Yerushalayim was for everyone. It wasn't davka for this shevet, that shevet, because in Yeshua's times, when they divided the land, there were different shvatim. Each shevet, each tribe had its own area. But in Yerushalayim, it was for everyone. It was for everyone to come together, not as a single shevet, for everyone to come and to feel a part of the nation. To kind of shift, because we've spoken on a practical level how it works for the Jewish people and how it works for Hashem. And now I think we can shift to a more spiritual and theological level. So we see that Yerushalayim has the name Yerushalayim. So what's the whole meaning behind the name Yerushalayim? So I brought a pasuk in Yechezkel, which says V'Shem Ha'ir Miyom Hashem Shama, and it means the name of the city from this day will be called Hashem Shama. Hashem is there. And we have Rashi on this brings a pasuk from Bereshit. Umalchi Tzedek Melech Shalem Hosi Lachem V'Yayin V'Hu Kohen Le'el Hayon. Malchi Tzedek was a Melech of Shalem. And this was actually the place, Rashi says, this is the place where Yerushalayim was. Hashem Shama, Hashem is there, and the place was called Shalem. And in Hebrew, the meaning of Shalem is not just peace. You say like Shalom, like Shalom. It's not just peace, but it's also there's a unity, a wholeness. And we see, what was the king's name? His name was Malki Tzedek. Tzedek is righteousness, justice. Malki Tzedek Melech Shalem. There was this whole purpose, not just to come together as a nation, but also act in a righteous way, in a moral way, to bring up this unity, this wholeness of Am Yisrael. on the one hand, we have this righteous moral way to serve Hashem, and on the other hand, we have this religious experience of connecting to Hashem. So here we see not only in a practical level, not only a religious level do we aim to connect to Hashem, but also in a practical way, in our social interactions with one another, we should connect to Hashem and to actually feel as though we are interacting with each other in a good level, in a positive way, in an ethical way, and thus from that we can serve Hashem religiously. So that's the shalem part. That's practically, socially, between man and man. Okay, and then we have, and that's just added to the point where we have this pasuk from Yeshaya. It hammers home this Vashiva Shovtecha K'Vershana V'Yetzei Tzayich V'Tchila Achrei Chen Yikra Lach Ir Hatzedek Priya Ne'emana Tzion B'Mishpat Tivdeh V'Shavia B'Tzedekah. It hammers home this ear of tzedek, of justice and righteousness, where we should act in a moral and ethical way. Okay, and now we obviously have Yerushalayim. So now we have the latter part of the name Shalem. Where's the Yeru from? So we see in Bereshit, Abraham, after almost sacrificing Yitzchak in the Akedah, he says he has a revelation. V'yikra Abraham Shema Makom Ahu Hashem Yireh. He calls his place Hashem Yireh. I fear Hashem. Asher Yomar Hayom Bahar Hashem Yireh. I fear, he says, in this place I've reached true Yirat Shamayim. After going almost all the way to following Hashem's will and almost sacrificing Yitzchak, he says, I have this place where I finally have this revelation. I've reached true Yirat Shamayim. And I feel like these are the two not contradicting elements, but parallel elements of Yerushalayim, right? On the one hand, we have this yira, this fear and awe of Hashem, this desire to serve Hashem, to have this avodat hamikdash on a religious level, like we said before. And we also have a practical level. We have the tzedek, the righteousness, the justice, the ethical way in which we treat each other. And they both have to balance each other out, right? You can't serve Hashem if you go about your daily dealings in a unjust and unethical way. And who are you to, even though you might act ethically, then where's your religious connection? You need to have both at the same time. And this is this shalem, this completeness, this wholeness and coming together, which all happens in Yerushalayim. But we said that Yerushalayim was the coming together of the name, but it's called actually Yerushalayim, which is plural. And we see that from this passage, there's some sort of a dual aspects at play once again. We have the plurality of the name Yerushalayim, and we have, I'll lose half of me if I forget about Yerushalayim. And if we look in the Midrash Tanchuma, I'll just go over it quickly you can read over that yourself. It's a bit complicated, but the basic answer, the basic point he's trying to portray is that Hashem built the heavenly Yerushalayim for himself and the earthly Yerushalayim for us. The heavenly Yerushalayim being Yerushalayim Shel Mala, and the earthly Yerushalayim being the Yerushalayim Shel Mata. So here we see this proposal of two separate Jerusalems. There's a Yerushalayim Shel Mala in the heavens, and the Yerushalayim Shel Mata on the earth, right? And for Hashem to want to reside within us is conditioned upon our Yerushalayim Shel Mata, which is similar to what we were saying before about tzedek, right? So only once you have tzedek, only once you act in a righteous way, will Hashem desire to reside amongst us and to bring His presence amongst us, and thus He will join this Yerushalayim Shel Mala and Yerushalayim Shel Mata. We're able to increase and to fulfill this whole religious service. But on the one hand, I was looking yesterday and I found this Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, which seems like a contradiction. And I actually asked Rav Bick, one of my rabbeim here at Gush, and he said no. So I'll just read the Gemara. Rav Yehuda bar Idi Amar Rav Yochanan Aser Masaot Nasa Hashchina. So Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Nachman that there are 10 journeys that the Shekhinah has left. So seemingly, we just said before that the Shekhinah of Yerushalayim lasts Adei Ad. But now we're saying that Hashem's Shekhinah left on 10 different levels. And I asked Rabik, and he said, no, there's like different madregas of Shekhinah. And I think this fits in very well with what you're saying of Yerushalayim Shel Mala and Yerushalayim Shel Mata. In the upper Yerushalayim, we see that Hashem chooses to whether he wants to reside amongst us based on the way we treat each other and based on our desire to serve him, right? Although his direct Shekhinah will always be there, there's still this some sort of will of Hashem wanting to actually reside within Yerushalayim. And it cannot exist, the Yerushalayim Shel Mala cannot exist without our involvement in the Yerushalayim Shel Mata. We must be active and create this positive, aesthetic, righteous name so that we can reach this awe and Yira Hashem, Yerushalayim, reach this shalom of Yira, of awe of Hashem, and thus eventually we can complete the joining of Yerushalayim Shel Mala and Yerushalayim Shel Mata. And you reach this supernal meeting between man and Hashem, this lofty religious encounter based off our social justice and the way we treat each other. And we see also so we've already established that we have in Yerushalayim, we have a mikdash, right? This is the religious service of Hashem. And we said it needs to be tzedek. And what needs to be tzedek? What can bring about tzedek? And that is a melech. So a melech, a king, a monarchy, although they aren't so popular today, is what we desire as a condition for Geulah. We desire a melech in Yerushalayim. Then what does this melech do? This melech kind of brings together all the political spheres of the world, all the political spheres of Eretz Yisrael, and he brings them together under one social justice system to create this type of society that is mentioned in the Torah, and thus we'll be able to serve Hashem, and he will be able to want to reside amongst us. And I think that based on what we say in our Amidah 3 times a day, we see that this Malchut, the Yerushalayim isn't complete without this Malchut. We say, Yerushalayim Ircha, Brachim Tashuv, Jerusalem, your city, may you dwell in Rachamim and compassion, V'tishkon b'toch Shedi Ba'arta, like you once said, Ota b'karov, soon, B'yameinu, in our days, Binyan Olam Chisei David Mehera, and the seat of David will be L'toch Tachin, will be amongst us. Brachat Hashem Bonei Yerushalayim. And then we go right into the bracha of Etzemach David, the monarchy, the Malchiot of David. So we see that even in the bracha of Yerushalayim, although Etzemach David came right afterwards, we see that even though seemingly it doesn't need, you can still have this mikdash, this religious service without a melech, seemingly because they include the Kisei David Mehera, the Kisei of David, into this actual bracha. Seemingly, you cannot have this Jerusalem, this avodah, this religious service with a Beit HaMikdash without the Malchiot, the kingship of David. And it's also proven, I didn't bring it here, but there's also a debate in the Yerushalmi whether to combine these brachot, to combine the Tzemach David and Yerushalayim. And even though we don't, it's still somewhat inherently there with the Kisei David. And we see through this, there's this parallel existence of Hashem's providence, the Yerushalayim Shel Mala, the Mikdash, the Avodah, and our own jurisprudence, the religious worship of Hashem, and our own political sovereignty. And not only do we require a melech to be ruler over us, but we also need a place of servitude, avodah, where we join the nation and serve Hashem together. In order to bring about the presence of Hashem, we must first acknowledge and notice how we interact with each other. If we have a fair justice system and are able to create a flourishing civil society, which the Torah preaches. So first of all, we have to build this righteousness, this justice, and only then we'll be able to merit the divine presence that exists on a higher level. But it's all on us. It's incumbent on us to kind of act in a just way, to build this kingship, to have good leadership, and to act well socially. And only then will we feel this religious desire, and Hashem will desire for us to serve Him all together, right? So we see there's a process. You need a type of this social awareness, this social justice, this good leadership, and then Hashem will allow His Shekhinah to reside once again in Yerushalayim, and there will be a mikdash, and these are like the steps of Geulah. And just to talk about Bizman Hazeh, so I'd just like to finish with Rav Kook, who basically is our total. He's what we follow very much at the yeshiva in terms of our ideas in Geulah, and I've been reading some of his books. And he speaks about Jerusalem. He has a whole like an essay on the banner of Jerusalem. So he wrote an open letter to Jerusalem in 1921. So I just want to take some pieces from here. We see, starts off by saying, the final objective of the holy is not merely the Jewish state, but the throne of Hashem in Jerusalem. And he says, it's not just, we aren't complete without the throne, the Melech Hashem in Yerushalayim. He establishes a building of Jerusalem as the end goal. We aren't complete in Eretz Yisrael without the completion, the building of Yerushalayim, where Hashem sits on his throne as he once promised. And to continue, I will just skip to the underlined. Now we must raise our national renewal out of its secular depths and up to a sacred movement, elevating its value in our inner world and in the larger world of humanity. So although the nation started off as a secular venture, eventually we must take this secular power, this secular vigor, and kind of this push to have this desire to build Eretz Yisrael socially and secularly, and garner this and channel this into a religious desire and yearning and building. And only then, and that's what he recalls, the sacred renewal, the banner of Jerusalem. We're going to take the secular roots and apply them and to build Jerusalem, and eventually we will merit to have the Geula. And just to finish off, we talked about the two different levels of Yerushalayim. We have the Yerushalayim Shel Mala, Yerushalayim Shel Mata. We have the Shalem, the completeness, that's Malchi Tzedek, the wholeness of the Am acting in a religious way and in a righteous way and a just way. And only then will Hashem start to bridge and bring His Shekhinah down in the Yerushalayim Shel Mala. And this is from the Yira of Shemaim, this awe of Hashem, this divine revelation. And I think for us, we can all build our own kind of Yerushalayim in ourselves. This is a concept, right? And Rabbi Benji said an amazing idea last year at one of our tishes. He's a Rav from Sydney. He said, because Yerushalayim is a plural, and it says Tishkach Yemini, and then it says our tongue cleft our palate, which sounds like a stroke, right? Because when we have this forgetfulness, when we forget this concept of Yerushalayim, then we'll have a stroke. We'll lose part of us. So we must combine the two aspects of Yerushalayim, not only the physical aspect of how we treat each other, but also the spiritual aspect and this desire to act religiously and to serve Hashem together as an Am Yisrael. We must create this shalem, this completeness, this whole just society, and we must also create this kind of religious desire, this fear and awe of Hashem, and this desire to serve Hashem as we once did in the Beit HaMikdash. And we all have this concept in ourselves, right? We must feel this desire, this want to serve Hashem religiously, and we must also treat each other on a good and a perfect and a strong level. As we see, just to finish off, we see in the Amidah, we have Yerushalayim, Tzemach David, Shema Kolenu, may Hashem hear our prayers, and then would say, may Hashem, where the will of Hashem bring His Shekhinah back to Israel and back to Yerushalayim, and only through that, He'll only do that if we have this type of justice in our societies. We have good leadership. We have people getting along with each other, coming together harmoniously, and only then will Hashem choose to reside His presence in Jerusalem, and we'll be able to serve Him as we once did.